Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike. I'm coming at you with a big question. Should you buy a PlayStation Vita in 2018? And listen up to the end so you can get my answer, but it's probably pretty transparent because I am a PlayStation Vita lover. I love the PlayStation Vita. I loved the PSP, and this is just a better version of the PSP, what it should have been. So the PSP was a technological marvel. This was an amazing system. And I've got to say that this is the first time I ever played God of War was on the PSP. And it was the first time I played a lot of the titles. I didn't have a PlayStation 3 till 3 years after I bought a PSP. PSP brought me into next-gen gaming. And to know that I truly have a PlayStation 3 in my hand is amazing. That's a marvel that I would say that's a marvel of modern engineering. So, I'm going to show you a little bit of gameplay on the PSP. So, hold it right there and just keep playing. Versus some gameplay on the Vita. Notice the Vita has a much bigger screen. And it's not showing up on camera as well, but it's way more vibrant. We're playing a little bit different iterations of the game. I guess it's based on save points, but the PSP is a 4.3-inch screen. The Vita is a 5-inch screen. The PSP runs at overclocked at a 333 megahertz, and the PSP is a 1 gigahertz easily. Trying to capture the gameplay together was really challenging, but you can kind of see the size difference in the screens, and the PSP was great for its time. It's still great right now if you don't want to spend, $200 on a Vita. But the PSP itself is an awesome system, and I still like it. I still buy more. I'm still going after different colors and different iterations. So why can't you go into Walmart right now and buy a PlayStation Vita? Well, there's a lot of reasons why the Vita failed in sales terms. I don't think it failed in performance. I don't think it failed in games. I don't think it failed in any way. It's the most user-friendly handheld video game system. It's the best video game system ever made that's a handheld portable that you can take where you want to take it. But it did fail. And the reason it failed is a two-part reason. This is the number one reason why the Vita failed. Because, well, you're ushering in the digital era on $100 cards. So yeah, when it released, it was $45 for an 8 gig. An 8 gig might get you 3 games. But when you're spending $50 after tax on a memory card, you expect it to hold a plethora of games, not just 3, not 2 and some save files. This is the biggest problem with a Vita. Well, now, if you get a Vita on 3.60 firmware, you can hack it, you can mod it. You've got to hack and mod this system, as with a lot of systems, to get what you really want out of it. Because they hold it back to make profit on the memory cards. Is there a 128 gig coming out? Maybe, but too little too late and going to cost you $200. So the SD to Vita is one way to get a large memory card. The second reason the Vita failed originally is because, well, guess what? Sony gave up on it. Sony truly gave up on this thing. So about 2015, Sony stopped support completely for this thing. Now you can still download games, mostly indie titles, but you can download pretty much every game made for it. And the indie titles are still expensive. So the $1 titles or free titles on other systems cost you $5 or $6 on this system. So that's a Vita tax. Well, there's a Switch tax because let's say Steep's coming out. Steep is right now a $30 game. It's going to be $60 if you buy it on the Switch. So is the Switch a better system? Well, yes, it has more processing power. It has more that you can do. This is more portable, more affordable. You can get a Vita for $100 or less. If it's check that it's running the 3.60 firmware, and you should be good to go. So a lot of people say the Vita has no games. So this is just about 100 and something of American release games. Not to mention the 300 games that you can get from Japan. Not to mention the 500 games you can download from other systems. Not to mention all the PSP backwards compatibility. Not to mention the new homebrew aspect with the 3.60. So I'm going to touch on a few of these titles that are big ones. So you've got Wipeout, Killzone. Killzone, okay, so it's not the best shooter ever made. Killzone was ever originally made as a top-down third-person kind of shooter, and it's turned into a first-person shooter, and they did well. They didn't do great. Uncharted is probably one of the best Uncharted games ever made, but you've got to be in for it. Borderlands 2 runs choppy and slow, but it was fun enough for me to go out and buy a PlayStation 3 version and play it on PlayStation 3. So it got me into the Borderlands 2 series. So any negativity towards Borderlands 2 on the PS Vita can go away. Some racer games. Racer games all work perfect. The Rayman platform games work great. Tetris looks great. Persona 4 Golden is probably... So every top Vita game list has this as number 1 or number 2. So it's okay. It's a fun game. I don't really care for RPGs at all. So for me to play it for more than a minute means it's a good game. You got JRPGs. Okay, they're there. You got some weird, crazy Akabita beats. Some other games. Obviously, you're going to have some ports, which is the Sly Cooper series. You've got The Wolf Among Us. That's just a super port across all platforms. Star Wars. Lego Star Wars. That's actually a pretty cool port. But the fact that it came out when the movie came out. Mirror Monster Rebirth is probably the best fighter on the game system. And then you've got Dead or Alive series, which is just very for specific people. And then all the Lego games on it. I mean, Lego takes over the world, just like Disney and all that. So, Putty Squad was a unique game to make it over here. And then the Danganronpa series is, of course, it's always going to dominate the system. The Trigger Happy Danganronpa. There's like 7 of them now, I think. So, Reality Fighters. Reality Fighters is almost like a tech demo in a way. And it's fun. But it makes you realize how much more you can do with a system than just play the games. And then you got the Shinobi Tutor, which is kind of like Shinobi, but an RPG in a way. Smart As is a lot of fun because it just really, it's kind of like that Brain Age, except for adults, more adults. But anyhow, who says this system doesn't have games? So the last thing I want to talk about is the difference between systems, and of course, which one should you get, or should you get one? So you've got 1000 and 2000 models. The 1000 is the white one on top, 2000 is the slimmer blue one on bottom, and the 2000 slimmer, as you can see, it has a proprietary port on the 1000, but the same port you use for Android device for charging on the 2000. You have a more vibrant OLED screen on the 1000. You have a better, probably a longer lasting LED screen over here. The buttons on the start and select are actually flat on the 1000, but raised a bit on the 2000. So there's differences here. And the reason for that is the ergonomic design, that they went with a sharper edge on the 1000 and a rounded edge on the 2000. So there's some big differences here. And I really think that it really depends, what your liking is. I like both for lots of different reasons. And this one's heavier duty, has like a link cable port up top, which the 2000 doesn't. And every iteration does the same thing. Every system gets a downgraded model but they try to tell you there's more in it. And really, this is the first time they actually put stuff in it that's worthwhile. The 1 gigabyte of onboard memory, blah, and that is actually helpful because if you don't have a memory card right away, you can save your games at least, and then you can do a few other things. But the 1000 didn't have that, and also it's a slightly faster processor, so you get to your programs a millisecond of a second faster. So the big question is, do I recommend that you get a PlayStation Vita in 2018? The answer is yes. Even if you already have a PSP, even if you have a Switch, this is way more portable than a Switch. So which one of these do you think will fit in your pocket better? The Switch or a Vita? You look at the bump bars, the buttons. This will fit in your pocket a lot better, even a book bag. I would still recommend either way. You get some sort of a protective case or protective screen on either one of them. This has the games. This has, if you have 3.60, it has some homebrew support to it already today. Don't go above 3.60. And it also has some... So all those games you play on your cell phone, well, you know what? If I'm playing a game on a cell phone, I get a call. I should get a lot of calls or texts. I'd rather just take it from a different device. It's ridiculous to try to play games from your cell phone. I've never understood somebody who thinks they're going to be playing a 30-hour game on their cell phone and get 85 interruptions. It makes no sense. There have been rumors about Sony putting out a PS Vita 2.0. This is the brochure from the launch of the Vita back in 2012. And I would be excited. I would be ecstatic if Sony released a PS Vita 2.0. I would be ecstatic if you had your PS4 in the palm of your hand. But guess what? You already do, because this does remote play. You can just push a few buttons and play Star Wars Battlefront 2 on your PSP and just use your PS4's power. So anyway, get one of these things if you don't have it. Find one as cheap as you can, like $100. Check your pawn shops. Check your local game stores. Don't pay way too much for it. $200 I think is too much for it now. Down the road they'll be like $500 to $700. So, Hanger out.